Hello, hello, hello. Check, check, 1, 2. Hi, guys. Welcome to day three. Lesson today about lighting. I'm super excited. Lighting is one of those subjects that I absolutely love to teach because it made such a huge difference in my illustration that I know it's going to make a huge difference in yours. If you're in the chat and I see a few of you guys, I want to say hi to Stream Doctor, Digital Candy, Arani, and Sipsik Olekilit. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Let me know if you can hear me well. You know the drill. Just to make sure that before I get into the deep of the subject, I want to make sure that everybody can hear me well. I want to say a big congratulations to everybody that's posting their work in the Discord channel, the Paintable Tribe. Lovely paintings, lovely pumpkins I'm seeing every day. Keep on posting. We are doing this challenge until the very end of the week. And at the end of the week, we are taking some winners. Also, want to remind that today being the last class that I'm doing, but it's not the last live. Tomorrow, I'll be in the tribe on Discord going live painting one of my pumpkin. So basically, I'll be repeating all the steps that you guys learned on Monday, Tuesday, and today, but put into one workflow, my workflow, where I'll be painting pumpkins all week long. I'm going to be on Discord. I'm going to be maybe tomorrow it's on Instagram. Maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe it's on Friday. Either or. There is also in the tribe Discord the schedule. You can go check it out. I don't remember when I'm going on Instagram. There's a day I'm going on Instagram. Thank you, George, to let me know that you can hear me well. Awesome. All right, let's jump right in then, because lighting being a little bit complicated, I want to make sure that I have all the time needed to explain it. So I want to teach you a 4 simplified lighting process, as you can already read. And these steps will be shadow shape. I'll explain what that is. Bounce light, highlights, planes, edges, and texture. As you can see, when you simplify something, at some point you have a step where there's a lot more happening, and that's the last step. But I'll show you all of this. On the cheat sheet, which by the way, you can have a link in the description of this video. It's free. Download it. You'll be able to have that reminder. I put another cheat sheet, this one coming from the Digital Painting Academy. Usually this one I don't give away, but I did give away this one because lighting is such a complex recipe. Having all the reminders, there's a lot more things that you can do actually with lighting. Today I'm going to show you just kind of 3 steps. But if you wanted to learn all of these steps, it's always great to understand visually what you're looking at when you're doing lighting from imagination. All right, so without further ado, let's come in here. So these are the pumpkin that I did on Monday, and what I'll do is I want to add some lighting to it. The first thing we're going to do is shadow shape, right? Shadow shape. So a shadow shape is formed by the form shadow and the cast shadow. A form shadow is, and I'm going to make a sphere so it's just clear to everybody. A form shadow, let's say this is a sphere. A form shadow is the shadow that it's on the object itself. So you can imagine that if I were to take this and add some shadow, the form shadow is on the sphere itself. And the cast shadow is what you have casted on an object. Like on this case, it could be just kind of on the ground right here, right? So here we have a form shadow and a cast shadow, and the two of them form what we call the shadow shape. It's basically all the shadows together placed into one shape. Now, why I want to put that as the first step? Because the shadow shape really kind of explains the form of the object with simply with those shadows, basically. I'm going to give you some examples here. So let's say that for this first one, I'm going to create a light source. Light source will be just kind of top front view like this. All right, so the arrow here represents the light direction of that first one that I'll do. New layer, and I'm just going to take a lasso, I think, for this. So you can imagine that probably that you would have a shadow here on the pumpkin. So let me fill that up. with just a gray. I might put that in multiply. Put gray. So let's say that that's my form shadow right here. And then I would have a casted shadow on the ground, right? And the two of them form the shadow shape like I was saying. Now, I could go into like details and make it up like more fancy, but for now, I just want to give you a few more examples because understanding this is important. So here, I'm going to create a different light source. The light source will be coming from the side right here. And so what I'll have is something more like, oopsie, something more like that, right? So it comes from the side here. So what you would have is some light here, and then the shadow, the form shadow, will be right here. There's a piece of a cast shadow, like the stem here will have probably some form shadow here. And I'm just going to fill that up with the same gray. So that would be my form shadow. It would definitely include that little part here. And then you would have the cast shadow. The cast shadow would be kind of on the ground, probably kind of very far here. This one might not be perfect, but I think it's close enough for you to understand. I could just do that and fill that up real quick. So now we have the form shadow and the cast shadow. And you can tell that by just doing those two things, it will show already like the form of the object. And we understand a little bit more the perspective of the light, where it comes from, by having those two things. Just give me a second. Yeah, Sharon, this is coming from behind. I'll give you another one before I move to the next step. Let's say that this one comes just something different. What could I do? I could do it like a side view. Let's say that there's a light source that comes on the side right here. What we would get is the form shadow would come right here. Right? And then the cast shadow, whoopsie, the cast shadow would be on the ground, going outside of the page here, on the ground like this, right? So all that to say that this is the form shadow and the cast shadow into kind of one shape, okay? I'll do just 3 examples for now, and that's fine. Now, knowing this, let's go to the next step. So bounce slide. Before I do the bounce slide, one thing that I did here is I did it on a white page, and that's a big no-no. Okay, why? Because you need your background to actually be able to play with the light. You need to be able to play with high value, which are closer to the white, and what we call low value, I believe, high and low, yeah. Low value, which are closer to the black. Right now, my highest value is white, and it's my paper, and so I'm not able to add any highlight on that thing. So what I should have done, and that's why I put it in multiply, what I should have done before doing that is to either add a color to the background, which I'll do here, so that there's a neutral zone kind of thing. And now I'll be able to add some lights and some bounce lights, okay? But I didn't want to add those necessarily as a step, just because being able to just do this as understanding how to place a form shadow and a cast shadow on an object is so much more powerful than learning all the steps that you have here, okay? But if you start on a white background, you'll have difficulty. So now I'm gonna fix it, and you'll see the fix. But practicing this, and that's really what I want you guys to do, is practicing this and being able to do a form shadow and a cast shadow on your pumpkin. Pumpkin being an object that's very simple, it's like a sphere really, will really help you. If you have difficulties with this, probably that you need to revise a little bit of perspective or how to paint light from imagination. I have a great class for this in the Digital Painting Academy, and you have all week long with a 20%, as you can see with the Spooky 20, just saying. But for now, let me just add the background like I was saying. I'm going to use that color, and then I'll take, I'll take the lasso tool, and I'm just going to do one shape since they're all the same. Bear with me. Whoopsie. Okay. I'm going to fill that shape up with a paler value, something like that. And I'll be able to just kind of, and it's not perfect, but in terms of like shape, but whoops, but it's still going to be good enough. What am I doing? Okay, there we go. And I'll just put it to those three. Okay, so what do we have? We have our form shadow and our cast shadow, and I modified the values to make sure that I'm able to add highlights on them. Let's go to step two. Step two is bounce light. So one thing that is super powerful when you want to express the form of something is to add a second light source on it. And bounce light is exactly that. It's a second light source. Now, I showed you that yesterday with the colors. And I think I explained a little bit the principle, but I'll just explain it again. So you can imagine that your light sources, I'll create a new layer here. Your light sources, they are basically a bunch of ray of lights, right? And so they are going on your object, they're arriving here, and they are stopped at what is called the terminator. The terminator is where your light basically cannot reach the form. I cannot reach this zone here, okay? This isn't a shadow, and it's below the terminator. Don't get lost in all the jargon. You'll have the reminder on the sheet. But all that to say that all the rays are going down. This is going on it, but the rays are not just going on the pumpkin. They're also going on the floor. And so the floor will become a second light source and have bounce light that comes back on the pumpkin. And so why I like to teach bounce light is because bounce light will help you to understand what is a core shadow. And a core shadow is super important. Let me go back here. If you're looking at all the things here, you have clearly a zone. That here. You have clearly a zone right here that is kind of darker. Do you see that? Like this zone right here. That's the core shadow. And it's created by being kind of stacked in between the light source and the bounce light that comes from the bottom, from the floor, and it creates a core shadow. Adding a core shadow to pretty much anything makes it look better. So it's kind of a trick that you can add. So we're going to do that here with our pumpkins. I'm going to take these pumpkins, put them together, and I'm going to select them and create a new layer here. I'm going to use a soft round brush for this, and I'm going to well, first of all, I'm going to add the light at the bottom of it, and for the sake of it, actually, I might just do something here. Let me do that. I'm going to put that back to white because I think it's going to be better for my explanation if I have actually separate backgrounds for each of them. So just bear with me a second. I'm going to create a dark background, kind of a box here to put my pumpkin in it. And being able to stay in those boundaries will help. Just like that. Bingo. And I'm going to take my saffron brush, like I was saying, and I'm going to add the light that goes on the floor, right? So I'm just going to pick up some white here and paint just a little bit more pale. So I got this. And then a trick that's super important is if you have something pale here, usually there's a gradient that comes from the back where there's kind of less light. So I'm going to put that dark. And that's going to also add some contrast. So that works really well. And then from there, I'm going to add my bounce light. The bounce light comes at the bottom of my pumpkin. So I'm just going to take the color that we have here kind of thing and just add a little bit of reflective light like this. It doesn't have to be much more than this. I could get my my shadow and just put them just a little bit more dark here so you can see the effect of that core shadow that is automatically created. Like that zone here will be like darker because of it. So this is why I put importance on step 2, which is bounce light. It's not because bounce light is on everything necessarily, but you can actually fake it by adding a glow of something coming onto your object. It would help you to round the object by adding a second light source, basically. I'm going to add, whoopsie. I'm going to delete just this here, and I'm going to kind of place this one here, kind of make them too close, but that's fine. And let me come here maybe and just, whoops, reverse this. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit so it stays inside. And we'll do the same thing here. We're going to add some bounce light, giving you just more examples for each of them. I won't do that for all of them for all the steps, but just for like a few steps. So here you have less bounce light, right? What you have actually, it's a shadow here, right? So here, this is, whoops, this is a shadow. So there's no bounce light that comes on it. There's no light coming from it. A little bit on the side here. So I could maybe take that here and kind of add it a little bit on each side, kind of a little bit. But what you can do is kind of add that core shadow by adding some darker tones in the middle. Because there's a light source that comes from both the right and the left, if that makes sense. And here you would have also the same thing, a little bit here, but then probably that this would get like darker at that point. Let me add the background to this one. And let's continue. So that was bounce light, okay? It's fun and easy and you can experiment with it. The other one that can be simplified now is highlights. Once you have your form shadow, your cast shadow, and your bounce light, the only thing I'm going to do before I do so is just kind of soften off my edges. Now, because it's a round object and form shadows on a round object will become just kind of a little bit more fuzzy. So I can just kind of delete that. It will have a soft edge right here. So I'm going to take just my eraser here and kind of delete that a little bit. I'll do the same here. Just soften up these edges a little bit. Same thing here. And same thing here. And now I can add my highlights. Create a new layer. For highlights, I showed that yesterday with the colors, but what I like usually is do that in 2 times. I take a hard round brush, and I kind of paint just some marks like this. Could be bigger. And then I come with a soft round brush as an eraser, and I kind of just delete it a little bit. Now, actually, I don't think that, I don't think that would be here. I think it would be just a little bit higher. Let me just kind of correct this for this one. Okay, just like this. There we go. Adding the highlight here. Here, the highlight would be kind of almost like on the side. It becomes almost like a rim light, but not really. And here, you would probably, if it was just there, probably that you would have some highlight, kind of a little bit more here, and maybe here, because it would hit the pumpkin right there. Now, there's a way to calculate where to put your highlight exactly, but you don't have to be fully precise. Just know the direction of your light and basically having following that direction. Like that's what I'm trying to do here. Just it goes around here, so it kind of hits about there. So I'm not following a precise formula. The same thing here. I'm imagining there's a ray that comes here. It bounces on my pumpkin, and the rays are bouncing back, and I feel like, all right, so that's about the zone. Just that gives you like pretty much all the component to round up an object. From there, all you have to do is to give it a little bit more love, or a lot, depending on what you want. And it's plane, edges, and texture. So this is a super important one because I think this is the one that will just kind of push what you're doing to the next level. So you want to imagine that the pumpkin being round. Let me just kind of do I'll just fill up one layer with white and white and a top layer. And you want to imagine that your pumpkin being kind of roundish, and then you have the the rays of light that goes on it. But if you were to imagine that instead of being completely round, it's kind of like just some small planes that are on your pumpkin. And each of those planes will reflect the light differently and therefore have a different value. That's a law of light, basically. You can imagine that if a plane, I'm just going to create a plane like this, receives a ray of light, the angle at which it receives the light will create a value, and the more perpendicular the light rays are, like let's say like if it's completely flat, that's going to be like 100% value. But if you have a little bit more of an angle, maybe that color will be, I don't know, I don't know the formula perfectly, but let's say it's 50%. Basically, it gets darker. And as it's rounding up on the side, so you would have, if it goes like this, it goes white, it goes almost white, mid white, and mid white. I don't know what that is. And getting too close to here, you'll get almost black until it finishes and passes the terminator, like I was saying, and then you get nothing. You want to think about that and basically kind of play with that concept on your pumpkins. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to be on top of mine. And now you want to think about, how is the light hitting my object? So I have my highlight here. This is going to be the brightest place. But then you have different value that can be added. Maybe this right here gets a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more value here. And then maybe that same value come here as well. And as it's turning away from the light, maybe that edge right here gets just a little bit darker. But then you have this inside of the eye, and this is kind of facing the light, So it's going to be there. That doesn't face the light at all, so it could be darker. That also kind of is parallel to the light, so it won't fit it. This is kind of perpendicular to the light, so it's going to be just a little bit more pale, and this is parallel to the light, so it's going to get darker. Maybe this side of it gets even more darker. And you want to continue kind of this and just kind of I like to just brush with my brush and kind of add some patchy, and it creates texture at the same time as it's creating rendering. Let me know if that makes sense. And if you have any questions, this is the time. I'm going to continue pushing that a little bit. But if you have any question, you can put the capital Q in front of it. This is going to help me a lot to just see your question, guys. I'm just going to see what's happening here. Cupcake says, will these streams be publicly available forever? I'm planning on letting them on YouTube. Yes. Richard says he has to go. Thank you for joining me. If you have any question, let me know, guys. I'll keep an eye in the chat to make sure I don't miss anything. Understand where is the bounce light is coming from, but on the other example, I really don't. All right, let me explain that for you, Sharon. So the bounce light comes from any objects around it that has light, right? So the idea is you have this zone on the side here, and forget about this shadow. It's not supposed to be there. But here, that zone here, that zone right here, will get some of the rays and they will bounce back on the surface right here. So you'll get like kind of a zone, a bit of a more pale right here kind of thing, and right here. But you won't get it here because you have a shadow, and so there's no bounce light really here. It's all dark. There's a shadow, and that's why I created a zone here that become kind of your core shadow, which is stuck in between two lights that are coming from both sides. And so this zone is kind of a darker. Let me know if that makes it clearer. And it's kind of the same thing that's happening here. You have rays of light here. You wouldn't have actually a lot of bounce light because the rays are completely like, parallel at the ground. So technically that ground would not even be that lit. It would be actually pretty kind of dark-ish, or maybe have like a fallout, which is very, very sharp. And then you would have a very long shadow. And you might have some bounce light that comes here because you have some of the rays that might bounce a little bit on the side, but that's about it. Question, Carl. When there's strong key lights behind what your lighting strategy for showing the details in the front without adding another strong directional light. Okay, I need to read that again. When there's a strong key light behind, what are your lighting strategy for showing the details in the front without adding another strong light source? So I'm assuming you mean in the shadows, right? So like here. So what you need to know is the value range of things, okay? And I think I explained that in the DPA, in the lighting module, by the way. So if you have a place in the shadow, right? So you have a shadow. I don't know why I'm doing this. I got the pumpkin here. I can just do it on the pumpkin. Give me a second. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. Yes, new layer. All right. So you have here a zone of shadow, and you have a zone of light, okay? Now, this zone of shadow will have what we call a value range. The range of value goes from white to black, right? So I'm going to create just kind of a value range here quickly. So let's say you have black at the extremity, you have white at the other extremity, and then you have, all the values in between until you get to pure black, right? You can imagine that these kind of blends and then forms kind of a gradient kind of thing. Now, this is what we call a full value range from white to black. But when you are in the shadows, you don't want to have a full value range. It will always look fake and not harmonious. You want to have a compressed or shortened value range. So you could imagine that your shadows are in this zone only, and that your highlights are a little bit larger. Let's say that your highlights are going into like this zone. So you have zone for the light, GHT, the light, and you have a zone for the shadows, okay? So when you start adding shadows here, you want to kind of play towards having adding some shadows, but you don't want to go into pale because the idea is to have details but with less contrast, basically. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. All right, so I would play with the value range that I actually have right here, and I would continue kind of help myself to render the form of that object, right? Taking my time. And maybe that goes high, and then that goes a little bit more dark, and you know, you kind of render all of this. And I'm gonna add some darkest here. And so I got this value, I got this value, and you know, I think this value. And that's my range for the shadow part. And then in the light, I would have, you know, the very bright kind of highlight on the surface outside. I might have some more white here. I might have a little bit more here on this. But that zone in between, that black light, black line, I'm going to take it out and reduce the value of it because it's in the light, right? Here, it might get a little bit darker, but not necessarily black. And then maybe in the middle of the face, it might get black, you know? Let me know if that makes sense. Carl says, yes, totally, that's good way to thinking about it. Awesome. All right. Glad that was helpful. So I'm basically doing this here. What I just explained is I'm just adding planes, edges, and texture to this, thinking about also the value range. So if I'm in the shadow, I want to kind of stick with, you know, with the values of my shadow, not going too dark or too pale, but sticking into that same range. Now here I have some bounce lights, so maybe that doesn't go here, but maybe that goes here. And then you want to think about, all right, so this is facing the light here, so maybe this is actually a little bit more pale. And then where it turns in the light, the edge here might be actually having a little bit more of a highlight because that edge is perpendicular to the light. Hopefully that's also making sense. Let me know. Something like that, right? Now, maybe the contrast here is a little bit too much, but the principle stays the same. I could just kind of make it more pale, maybe. How late am I? Real? We are 35 minutes, so I'm probably going to finish soonish. I'm actually finishing. You'll be able to see the replay as soon as I finished. So I'm just going to push this a little bit more because obviously at this point, what I need to do is take my time. Like here, I just realized that I haven't added a different local value for my stem. I would probably have to start with that first before I add actually any light, because that's not the same. And then I would probably kind of add whatever shadows and lights that needs to be done here. And lighting is all about deconstructing into simplify steps. So that's why I wanted to show a 4-step, but obviously the sheet that I have, that's why I put you there, because all of these things, if you want to have something very realistic, need to be added. So it's just taking your time here. I would probably like start to reduce the lines, kind of delete them, but then at the bottom, keep them a little bit more dark because the lights is darker there. On the top, make them more pale, but also play with Maybe the light bounce a little bit more here, a little bit less there. All of these planes will bring different value. And it's also just a great way to add texture. And so that's why I was also adding texture to that step. Because really, especially for the pumpkin, all I'm doing is having fun, just adding some marks, really. And it still looks good because if you stay within the range, it's going to add, no matter what, just like form and texture all at the same time. Yeah, thanks, Realm. Appreciate it. Yeah, more to come for sure. We're going to be there all week. So yeah, as I'm continuing this, thanks for everybody that shared their best memories with me in the tribe about Halloween. I have a great time reading them. Thank you so much for sharing. Halloween being, one of those holidays that as adult, I think and as teenager and young adult, maybe you still go to bars and but maybe not as teenager. Stay in school, don't drink. But if you're an adult, you might go in bars and have those costume parties. I know I've been to a few in my own time, but now that I'm 40, Jesus, I'm 40 this year, and I just don't have just the same lifestyle. So it's pretty rare that I can enjoy this holiday in the same way that I was doing with costumes and whatever. So drawing about it has been really just what I love to do now. So yeah, so as I'm just adding things here, I also try to make the line disappeared. So that's for like taking like, for example, here, it's making like a clear conscious choice between those two edges and being like, all right, so this plane is that value, this plane is that value, and so on and so forth. Sharon says, but how can you put some bright areas and lines on shadows areas? I mean, the light isn't supposed to reach this area you are at. I'm not sure of your question. What do you mean? Wait. How can you put some bright areas and lines on the shadowed area? Um, the shadow area still has definition, right? You still see things. It's just a question of the planes, like I was saying. So these planes here are away the most from the light, right? So they'll be like kind of dark. But these planes here are facing a little bit towards the light, so you're going to see them a little bit more. So it's knowing how to understand how they face. And because there's like a light source here, for example, I might have even like a cast shadow of that little thing here and something like that for this one, that might even go there. You might have that line here with a little bit more shadow and kind of thing. It adds texture and at the same time, it adds the value that you need. There is definition in a shadow. What you don't want to do, you know what? Let me show you the mistake. What you don't want to do is adding a highlight here. There's no highlight, right? So I'm not gonna add a highlight here. It would make no sense. That's in the middle of the shadow. I'm not going to put the flesh of the eyes here super pale because it's in the shadow, right? So I might be able to put it just a little bit more pale because it's a different texture, it's a different value, but the contrast shouldn't be that high, basically. Let me know if that makes sense. To Smile says, I'm doing costume to scare children that are coming to my for my candies. That's pretty cool. I have a house here, but I'm in Thailand right now, and it's a holiday. I don't think it's as popular here, and I don't think I'm in a neighborhood where I could just have candy. But otherwise, I know both me and my wife uh, would love to add a lot more decoration to our house and give candy. I don't know if you guys watch what is the show name? It's Modern Family, I believe. And in it, one of the character is crazy about Halloween, and they're like decorating their houses. And it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of something that I would love to do myself. Question from Bean. I like to first work with lighting in black and white like this, and rather to add colors. How do I do that, if that's possible? Are you asking me how to colorize a grayscale image, or are you asking me how you start with colors and add light? Because I can show you from the grayscale because it's not going to take me too much time. But from colors, I would have to just restart. It's a different, it's like a mix the two. If you want to see me add colors directly and light and shadow, I'll be doing that this week in the tribe. So I'm going there tomorrow, I believe. I'll be creating a new pumpkin, kind of following my own process, which is a mix of everything that I showed you guys today. And I'll start directly in color. And I'll be explaining every step, so you can go check it out. But if you want to add colors to a grayscale image, there's 1.5 million ways. One of the great ways that I love that works in any software is just to add a new layer and change it to color mode, color. And then you can take a blue, for example, and just start add color. If that doesn't work, you can try with multiply. Multiply will darken your colors a little bit, but still works very well. And then from there, you want to maybe add an overlay layer. You know what? Let me just put something orange so it makes sense to you. Orange, and then you want maybe another one, and you want to put that to overlay, and maybe add some different colors here, and you can start like adding colors. So it's a great way to do it this way, because doing your values before you do your colors will really help you to really nail that. How to colorize after lighting black and white? Well, that's one way. There's really more ways to do so, but that's one that I really like to do. Okay, so that's the huge topic. It's possible, but many things. It's just easy to restart in colors once you know your values. Coloring in black and white paint is a lot of work. It is true, Carl. You're 100% true. It's more work for some, but for things that are very complicated, sometimes where you have a lighting that's complicated, I feel that having a black and white image, I'm going to go show you an example. I'm working on my monthly project right now for the Digital Paint Academy, and these are my sketches. And this is like a lighting, for example, that I want to go with. And I'm probably going to build the image in black and white because I want to nail the value and the lighting before I add colors. Now, I could do it in colors, but especially because it's a night scene, it's going to be much easier for me to actually do the black and white and then transform it into colors. So there's different ways to do a lot of things, and there's different process. That's the word that I was looking for. There's different processes for different images. A pumpkin like this, starting in colors, no problem. But sometimes if you have a very complex image and you want to make sure that you're making your lighting very, very well before you add colors, doing it in black and white will really help you, I think. Sharon, you're absolutely welcome. Why do you live in Thailand? Were you born? Were you born there? No, I'm not born in here. I decided to move years ago. I'm from Montreal originally. Let me try to paint and talk at the same time. I'm not good at that. I'm from Montreal. I'm a French Canadian, if you can spot the accent. And I decided to move from Montreal years ago, and kind of was on a journey of discovery. I lived 2 years in Berlin, and then 6 months in Bali, which was awesome. And then I ended up a little bit in Thailand, and I went in Colombia, where I met my wife, and decided to come back to Thailand because after all these travels, Thailand is one of those places that, I don't know, it's good to live, it's safe, it's good weather, and so we're really happy here. So I just decided to move here kind of permanently for now, but I'm kind of I'm not so much a digital nomad these days because I don't move much. But I guess at some point in my life, that was the correct definition. Right now, I have my house here that I'm renting. I have my studio with all my gear. I'm able to do lives like this, and I'm pretty happy about it. And I think I'll be here for a few more years. Bean says, how to colorize after lighting black and white. I think I explained that, and then you did that. Okay, perfect. Let me know, guys, if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I'm probably going to let you go in a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining me for all these lives, guys. So what I'll have for the rest of the week is kind of just me painting with you guys. I'll be doing some more pumpkins. I'll be showing up on the Discord, on YouTube, and I'm going to try on Instagram because I saw some artists being able to do it and I want to test it. So if I'm able to paint live on Instagram, that's going to be a new platform that I'll be able to do lives as well. And I'm pretty excited about this. So for now, be sure to download your cheat sheet. It's in the description. You'll see that the pumpkin at the end that I have, I spent a lot more time and I was not talking at the same time. So there's a lot more detail. So you're able to see what you can do with it. But also, I'll be kind of painting, like I was saying, the rest of the week without having to teach anything necessarily. It's going to be much easier for me to get in the zone. You'll be able to see my process from start to finish. So definitely come check it out. There is in the tribe the calendar for all the events, but also I post notification in there every day and on Instagram. So just look at one of those to make sure that you have the links. But yeah, that's it. So I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow, I believe, in Discord. Have a great day. Keep posting. Happy painting. Happy Halloween. I'll talk to you soon, guys.